Let's talk a little bit about Donald Trump and the Constitution. Republicans claim to love and value and respect the Constitution above all else. Often they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And sometimes Republicans claim to support the Constitution by complaining about some of the rights that are afforded to everybody by the Constitution. And a new trend among the Republican primary contenders, aside obviously from talking about defunding Planned Parenthood and how bad Obama is to talk about how maybe we should repeal or amend the 14th Amendment to the Constitution so that people are no longer automatically granted citizenship to the United States just because they are born in the U.S. The 14th Amendment, of course, was ratified in 1868. It grants citizenship to, quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States. It includes, of course, former slaves who at the time had been more recently freed. In addition, it forbids any state from denying any person life, liberty, or property without due process of the law, or to deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Let's put aside for a second that it is very difficult to change an amendment to the Constitution, so much so that in many cases it's barely worth discussing. Let's table that part of the conversation for a moment. Donald Trump went on the Bill O'Reilly program on Fox News and said that the 14th Amendment to the Constitution would not hold up in court. Essentially, what Donald Trump is saying is the Constitution would be ruled unconstitutional, or at least one of the amendments to the Constitution. Here's Donald Trump personally explaining it to Bill O'Reilly here. Bill O'Reilly astutely points out these mass deportations of immigrants who are now considered American citizens simply are not going to happen. And here's what Donald Trump had to say.
The strongest part of your immigration plan, in my opinion, is the wall. I think it's a doable thing. Rudy Giuliani came in here and you can do it. And that would cut down a lot of the illegal immigration. And not only that, the drug trafficking, which is out of control. So I support the wall. But then you say, well, we got to have mass deportations. That's not going to happen because the 14th Amendment says if you're born here, you're an American and you can't kick Americans out. And then if you wanted to deport the people already here, each and every one are entitled to due process. And it would take decades to do that and gazillions of dollars. And the courts would block you at every turn. You must know all that.
Bill, I think you're wrong about the 14th Amendment. And frankly, the whole thing with anchor babies and the concept of anchor babies, I don't think you're right about that. I think
can
it's
quote
going to
it.
be
You want me to
proven
quote you the amendment? If you're born here, you're an American. Period. Period.
But there are many lawyers are saying that's not the way it is in terms of this. What happens is they're in Mexico, they're going to have a baby, they move over here for a couple of days, they have the baby. No, but Bill, they're saying it's not going to hold up in court. Now it's going to have to be tested.
Donald Trump makes Bill O'Reilly sound really reasonable during this segment. It's incredible. It's a sad day when Bill O'Reilly is the voice of reason. That's how extreme the Republican Party has become.
Yeah, really. And I love this clip. It really shows just how open to interpretation the Constitution really is. And we've seen it from Supreme Court decisions and these lawyers that Trump is talking about. It seems like the writing is pretty clear to us, but people have completely different ideas about what it means.
The other idea that I want to make sure everybody is aware of here is that if you scrap the concept of birthright citizenship, are only Native Americans the actual people who should be citizens here, right? I mean, how far back do we go with what should be the updated 14th Amendment as these Republicans want it to be? It becomes so hypocritical and arbitrary because at a certain point, white Europeans came over and said, yeah, we are here legally. This is our country now. Forget about the fact that we just kind of showed up and ravaged the native societies, pre-existing societies. And the other thing I want to remind you of is that this entire conversation is sort of nonsense because this pejorative term anchor babies is used to suggest that somebody rushes over the border and has a child here and then the parents are able to stay. There's actually, this is a myth, right? Current U.S. federal law prevents anyone under the age of 21 from being able to petition for their non-citizen parents to be lawfully admitted here. So yeah, you could rush over, Lewis, birth a child here, and then 21 years later, the child could be used, could be sort of the signatory to petition that the parents be allowed to stay. This is really ugly stuff.
Yeah, and I like the point that Bill O'Reilly brings up about how much all of this would cost.
Yeah.
And, I think the wall would cost quite a bit too, but it doesn't really sound like small government, does it?
There is one victory here, which is it sounds like at least one Republican is willing to conceptually accept the idea that maybe we need to update some elements of the Constitution to be more relevant to modern life. We've talked about this within the context of making the Second Amendment more specific. We've talked about it within the context of guaranteeing some basic level of health care to everybody. I agree broadly that maybe some elements of the Constitution need to be updated, because if we think back to how different society was when they were written, obviously things have changed drastically. I just don't think the 14th Amendment is the one we really need to be focusing on here. Let's take a break. A very interesting discussion coming up after the break about war, peace, and the needed paradigm shift.